About 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I started a conversation with the Hewlett Foundation and the Fetzer Institute about the status of democracy in the United States and all over the world. There was Arab Spring, there was Occupy Wall Street, there was gun violence in our communities, there was Brexit and the election of Modi in India and the election of Duterte in the Philippines. And there's been this global trend of political polarization, exacerbated by inequality, many, many, many different factors. What is the response that the emergent young philanthropic community has? In many ways, philanthropy is risk capital, and young people are the tip of the spear of global innovation. It is our duty to innovate ourselves out of this mess that we find ourselves in, this political mess, this increasing polarization. How can we do that? In these conversations with the Hewlett Foundation and the Fetzer Institute, I began to see that the history of political philanthropy in this country is very much influenced by the Koch brothers. They have an organization, they call it the Koch Donor Network. They convene several hundred families every year. They do research about, they analyze the conservative movement, and they fund the advance of it. And there's an organization on the other side called the Democracy Alliance, which gathers Democrat-focused philanthropists, which does the same thing for progressive causes. These coalitions of philanthropists at a US domestic level are funding a political fight. Who is funding the collaboration? Our country is trapped in what I call an anger industrial complex. You're on one side of a fight, you find news about the other side, you exaggerate it, you spread it to your networks, it creates outrage, you get a viral fundraising haul out of it, and you mobilize your base and you suppress the base of your adversary. And you know what? This is a runaway business model. And when there's a successful business model, it scales. And that model of manufactured fear and manufactured division needs a competitor. Enter the Healthy Democracy Coalition. So the Hewlett Foundation and the Fetzer Institute have supported NEXUS to create this new national coalition of cross-partisan philanthropists. Imagine the Koch brothers and the Soros family, these philanthropic families from maybe younger generations from these families coming together and realizing that they have belief in transforming criminal justice together. Imagine all of these opportunities. Imagine the board of the National Rifle Association and Planned Parenthood coming together to protect election integrity so that Russia can't interfere too much in future elections. There's an extraordinary opportunity if we come together across these lines that divide us. After putting out the news of this, people from Mexico and the Philippines and Indonesia and Brazil and Russia, almost every country where NEXUS has a base, has reached out to us and said, we need this in our country. This is a global thing. But democracy, if it is at threat, and if as a generation we are to innovate it, we need to expand it. We need to transform what democracy needs. How can we do that? I'd like to introduce my new friend, Mari.
Good morning. Good morning. I just had coffee too. My name is Mari Margill. I'm with the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund and our International Center for the Rights of Nature. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jonah. Thank you to NEXUS for inviting us. Several years ago, in a first-in-the-world case, a court in Ecuador ruled that the Vilcabamba River had legal rights, specifically rights to exist, to regenerate, to evolve. In 2016, Colombia's Constitutional Court ruled that the Atrato River possessed legal rights. And just earlier this month, on the 4th of July, a court in India ruled that the entire animal kingdom has rights. It was more than a century ago now that naturalist John Muir wrote that we must respect, quote, the rights of all the rest of creation. And more recently, in a speech before the United Nations, Pope Francis said, and I'll quote, "A true right of the environment exists." Yet today's legal systems do not recognize a right of the environment. Environmental laws around the world, rather than protecting the right of the environment, regulate its use. Thus, rather than protect against fracking, environmental laws legalize fracking. Rather than protect against pesticides, environmental laws legalize them. And so it goes for pipelines, for drilling, for mining, and so on. Environmental laws treat nature as property or commerce. In fact, in the United States, the major environmental laws, the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, were passed by Congress under the Commerce Clause of the US Constitution. Environmental laws thus regulate how we use that property or commerce. That is, they legalize the use and exploitation of nature. And the consequences, of course, are proving catastrophic. We see the die-off of the world's coral reefs, species extinction occurring at more than 1,000 times natural background rates, and of course, climate change, which is accelerating in the past 3 years, the hottest on human record. How the law treats nature today is not unlike how much of the human population has been treated throughout history, as property, without even basic rights to exist or well-being. Under slavery, for example, injuring or killing another slave was considered a property crime. Monetary damages were to be paid to the slave owner. It took mass people's movements to transform slaves, women, indigenous peoples, from rightless to rights-bearing. Today, a new people's movement is building to secure the highest legal protections for nature through the recognition of legal rights. In 2006, my organization assisted Tamaqua Borough in Pennsylvania to become the first place in the world to recognize the rights of nature in law. Today, communities in 10 states have enacted such laws, with efforts now advancing to the state level. In 2008, we assisted Ecuador in drafting its constitution, the first in the world to recognize constitutional rights of nature. Bolivia now has a rights of nature law in place. In India and Colombia, courts have ruled that rivers and other ecosystems possess legal rights. And today, we're working in countries around the world. In Nepal, on a constitutional amendment to recognize rights of the Himalaya. In Australia, to guarantee rights of the Great Barrier Reef. In India, to recognize rights of the Ganges River. Now, many have said that the recognition of the rights of nature is a codification of indigenous values. In Ecuador, indigenous delegates told us that enshrining the rights of nature in the Constitution would strengthen their collective rights as indigenous peoples. And here in the United States, the Ho-Chunk Nation is the first to take steps towards securing a rights of nature tribal constitutional amendment. John Greendeer, former president of the Ho-Chunk, told me, quote, "The rights of nature is who we are, who we were, and who we will be." Today, we are tearing holes in the very fabric of life. And if we continue on in this way, history will show that we failed to do what was necessary because it was difficult. In our democracy school trainings, we study past people's movements. We learn that they did what was difficult because it was necessary. Now it is our time to make change, to change how we govern ourselves toward the natural world. Before, as Colombia's Constitutional Court wrote, it's too late. Thank you.
Domingo Peas and Atosa Soltani.
Muy buenos días, amigos, hermanos, hermanas.
Good day to you all, friends.
Yo soy de la nación Achuar, Amazonía ecuatoriana y Perú.
I'm from the Achuar Nation in the Ecuadorian Amazon and also in the border with Peru.
Voy a hablar en nombre de la CONFENIAE, que represento 11 nacionalidades en Ecuador y 7 en Perú.
I'm going to speak on behalf of CONFENIAE, the federation that represents 11 indigenous nations in Ecuador and also 7 in Peru.
Los Achuar existimos tanto en Perú y Ecuador. En Ecuador, 6,000 habitantes. En Perú, 12,000 habitantes.
The Achuar live on the border region of Ecuador and Peru. In Ecuador, we are 6,000 inhabitants. In Peru, we're 12,000 inhabitants.
Lo más importante, quiero agradecer a los organizadores de NEXUS.
And most importantly, I want to thank the organizers of NEXUS.
Y también quiero felicitar a todos los expositores que han hecho ya ayer y van a hacer hoy día.
And I want to congratulate all the speakers, all the ones from yesterday and the ones that are speaking today.
En especial al niño y la niña que ya presentó ayer.
And especially the girl and the boy who presented the day before yesterday.
Yo creo que los que estamos aquí estamos por algo positivo.
I believe that the people who are here are standing for something positive.
Nosotros, especialmente todos los que existimos en la Amazonía, somos quienes vivimos, que nos conectamos con la naturaleza.
The indigenous people who live in the Amazon, we are connected, intrinsically connected to nature.
Porque nuestra cosmovisión, nuestro Dios, digamos así, para nuestra sabiduría, la tierra es nuestra madre tierra. Está conectado entre subsuelo, tierra y atmósfera.
For us, nature is Mother Earth, and we are connected to nature through the soil, through the land, and through the atmosphere. Our God is in the forest.
Por eso es muy sagrado para nosotros. Hemos cuidado toda la vida sin a cambio de nada.
And for us, the forest is sacred. That's why we have continued to take care of it and to defend it and not allow it to be destroyed.
Y estoy aquí porque la vida, la existencia del ser humano es importante, pero también somos ambiciosos.
For us, it's important. Human beings are important. The being human our humanity is important. But also, human beings, we are being ambitious.
Traigo para decirles que la selva que existe, el río que tiene vida, la selva que existe que tiene vida, que el aire es importante para todos ustedes, para todos nosotros.
I'm here to tell you that the forest is alive. It is alive. The forests, the rivers are alive. That it is important for life, not just for our life, but for life across the planet.
Nosotros hemos defendido solo, hemos peleado con los empresarios, con mundo exterior, pero yo no creo que es necesario pelearnos.
And we have defended this forest. We have stood our ground and held back the industrial forces and the corporations. And we've won. We've held back entry of these companies. But now I'm telling you that we don't just want to fight.
Ahora es momento de que todos nosotros sentemos en una sola mesa.
And it's important now for all of us to sit together at the same table.
Los jóvenes, mujeres, científicos, economistas, docentes,
The women, the children, the youth, the scientists, the economists, the students,
tenemos un objetivo común.
we have a common objective.
Ustedes saben que tenemos un riesgo fatal si vamos con este camino trazado, una economía acumulativa, una economía destrozador. Ese camino nos va a llevar mal.
We know that we are in an existential crisis. We're in a crisis for humanity's survival, and that the path we're on, which is the path of the accumulative wealth, accumulative economy, and it's going to take us, and scientists are telling us that this path will lead us to disaster.
Ahora tenemos que educarnos, autoeducarnos primero nosotros. El futuro de nosotros y de nuestro planeta depende de todos nosotros.
And now we have to educate ourselves. We have to recognize that through understanding, we have to act, that the future of the planet depends on us, all of us.
Entonces, les invito, hermanos míos, la selva, la Amazonía, el río que existe ahora, el mayor porcentaje de la selva existente es territorio indígena.
I invite you all to support the defense of the Amazon and to recognize that the majority of the forests that are left in the Amazon are indigenous territories.
Entonces, ahora hay que sentar todos juntos, pensar, confiarnos unos a otros.
And we have to sit together and we have to trust one another on the same table.
Y abrir un nuevo rumbo, un solo camino.
And to open up a new pathway, a new way, a collective new way.
Para que la generación que viene pueda tener existencia con buena sana, con salud excelente, con buena vida, así como todos queremos.
So that future generations can be here, can survive, can live in a healthy world, to benefit from the things we have benefited in our lives, and to stay alive.
Yo sé que es difícil cambiar esto. Decir a un empresario, ve, dona tu plata para esto, sé que es difícil.
This is difficult. I know to say to a private company or an entity, give your money up so that we can save this place is hard.
Pero estamos viendo que es posible, todo es posible.
But we're seeing that all is possible. It is all possible.
Entonces cambiemos nuestra actitud y trabajemos juntos pensando en la vida humana.
And we just have to change our attitude and think of the human life and to work together.
Para concluir, quiero invitar a otro encuentro en Quito, este evento importante de NEXUS en Ecuador.
To conclude, I want to invite you all to the next very important NEXUS Summit in Ecuador, the Latin American Summit in Ecuador.
Es que es la manera de encontrarnos, de conocernos mejor.
It's a way for us to get to know each other better.
Y también quisiera invitarles a la selva amazónica, en especial a mi territorio.
And I want to invite you to join a delegation to come to the forest, to come to my territory in the Amazon rainforest.
Porque solo teoría no es importante, mejor es sentir a la selva.
Its theory is not just the only thing that's going to matter. It's really important to feel the forest and get to know it in firsthand.
Y ánimo, hermanos, todos unidos vamos a tener un triunfo exitoso.
And brothers and sisters, all of us united, we're going to triumph. We're going to prevail.
Máquete.
Makete. Thank you, Nacho.
It's okay. So I'd like to invite Justin to the stage. Justin, are you here? So Emmanuel Macron is the president of France. And this coming November 11th is going to mark the 100-year anniversary of the treaty that ended World War I. And In response, there's going to be the Paris Peace Forum, and Justin is here representing it. Macron will invite 100 heads of state, as well as industry and philanthropy and civil society for the entire world. Tens of thousands of people will go. NEXUS is invited to organize a delegation to our Latin America Summit, September 27th and 28th, and to Paris. And this is an opportunity for our generation to call for a transformation of democracy as we know it, away from this game of polarization, away from a fight for power, and towards one that is a celebration of diversity, and towards one that embraces the voices of nature. Please talk to this guy. He's here to help your voice arrive on the world stage. Thank you.